So it's the end of April and I am on a 68-acre property here in northern Michigan. I'm here today with Eric from Thickets, otherwise known as Lake Effect Property Services. He's got his forestry mulcher here today, and with my chainsaw and his mulcher, we're going to be creating a very long food plot corridor that runs from the west side all the way across to the east side of this property along the north side. So this is going to allow the hunter to come in from the north side, come into about 3 big white pine trees that'll be along that big long food plot corridor, and the deer will be coming in from the south side up on high ground, where I'm also going to be creating some hinge cut bedding. So the landowner had contacted me to create some more food. All he has is this little half-acre food plot right here. He's got a box blind back here, he's got a tree stand over here. But you know, once the season, we get through that first couple of weeks, and you know, the predictability of deer movement just starts going downhill from there. And so we're going to try and increase that a little bit. He's going to have early season stands down here by the food, and then he'll have later season stands up on the high ground around the other side of bedding. So we're going to start knocking some trees down today, and we will take some video and show you the progress as we go along.
So just to give you an idea of what this property looks like on an aerial view, and to give you an idea of what Eric and I did that day, you can see here inside the white lines is the property border, and this diagonal line actually is a dirt road. So this is 68 acres inside here, and this is currently the only food plot on the whole property. This is in a wilderness setting up in central Michigan. There's absolutely no cash crop fields anywhere. No corn, no soybeans. Very few people planting food plots, and if anything, there's probably neighbors putting out sugar beets during the hunting season, which even though it is illegal in Michigan. So, you know, the landowner is really struggling on having any kind of predictable deer movement on his property. They pretty much just pass through. This area up here is all high ground on the south end of the property. This here along the road is all low ground, and you can probably see these topo lines here. So we got pretty steep incline going up here to the southern part of the property, and it is just all poplar and maple and white pine, maybe some cherry, but really no timber value in here. And there's no oaks really on the property. There may be a few up here in the high ground, but that is about it. So the deer generally bed up in here during the day, and then they head down this way or head down to other parts of the area to go feed at night. So we know the deer are bedding up here, but what we wanted to do is we wanted to create some predictability where it's easy for him to hunt this food on the property without spooking the deer, because his margin of error here is pretty small. So I decided to create a long food plot corridor that runs parallel to the road, and it's going to end up going from the western food plot and then heading east all the way down here to another small food plot that we're going to create on the end of the food plot corridor. So what that's going to do is it's going to concentrate some deer movement parallel to the road, and we got a big white pine here and a big white pine here that he can absolutely hide in, and it's not too far off the road. Just walks in, gets into that tree, and we have another white pine tree way over here on the east end, and that's going to overlook the end of the food plot corridor with a little food plot there on the end. Now this little area right here is an area where you can see it goes down through these 2 big hills here. This is kind of like a little draw that goes up into the high ground, but it's a very gradual. So what we did is we're going to clear this out right here. There was I think some straight line winds or tornado that had come through this property, and from an area about right over here and going right through here, there was a bunch of trees that got knocked down. And so it was either a small tornado, straight line winds, but a lot of timber on the ground. So we're going to take advantage of that, and we're going to create a food plot corridor going right through here, coming into the woods up the draw, and then up into this draw right here, and a little one right there. So all in all, the distance of this whole food plot corridor here is just over 500 yards, and the width of this thing is going to be anywhere from 20 to 30 feet wide. That's going to be just shy of 1 acre worth of food that we're going to add to this property. So it's going to be significant from what he has right now. So the way he's going to be able to hunt the property is he's going to have early season stands right here along the road. and which he can get into 1, 2, 3 different big white pine trees. He's got a box blind over here on the west side of this little food plot. And then he's going to have stands later in the season for those 3 phases of the rut back here, inside bedding and behind bedding. And so that way he'll be able to come in on this orange dotted line, come up the hill, come in and around, and sneak into some big white pines that are over in this part of the property as well. So it should be a much more predictable hunting property at that point. There will be some other things that he can do on this property in the future, but for the 2 days that Eric and I had available to work on this property, this is what we said that we'd be able to get done and get him set up, and it should work out much better for him already this fall. The blue dots right here, I got 2 water holes that we're going to add to the property. This is something that he can do later, but we got one here on the east end, one on the west end. And so, you know, we want to make sure that we're putting enough points of interest along this food plot corridor, which is what the water hole, the mock scrapes, and the fruit trees do as well. So with that said, let's get on to mulching this food plot corridor. So while Eric was sharpening the teeth on the mulcher head, I grabbed a roll of orange ribbon and laid out the path for the food plot corridor. It's easy to get off track when you're working in the woods. I found that using ribbon is better for this than paint because you always find yourself moving and tweaking the path as you go. It's very important that it be a winding corridor because we don't want the deer to be able to see very far. A long straight corridor will make mature deer feel more exposed during daylight hours. Eric of Thickets and I have teamed up on several properties to create in the woods food plots, food plot corridors, deer trails, and hunter access trails. I don't know of any other method that's faster and with less impact to a property than the combination of a chainsaw and a forestry mulcher. It doesn't matter if we're in thick heavy cover or mature open hardwoods or in a softwood stand of young trees like on this property. Even though the mulcher head can cut and grind down 8-inch softwood or 6-inch hardwood trees, that would slow down the process too much and create more wood chips than necessary. So with a chainsaw laying down the bigger trees and cutting the trunks in half, this allows a mulcher to easily push them off to the side without spending valuable time grinding them down. All that's left then for the mulcher is to grind down the stump, which only takes a few seconds. That allows him more time to make small trees and brush completely disappear and leave the valuable top layer of organic matter undisturbed and virtually food plot ready for an ATV to run a harrow drag across the plot. So as you can see, this 500-yard long winding corridor is almost food plot ready. This process is much faster and with a lot less impact to the property than what a dozer can do. There's no big root balls to deal with and no holes to fill and level off. And the organic layer on top is still intact because we didn't bring up any sandy soil. All the landowner needs to do is pull a harrow drag over it with his ATV to smooth it out and he'll be ready to go. He doesn't need a tractor, no discs, no tilling up the ground because he can go completely no-till with just small ATV tools and will have the ability to grow very attractive food plots. This method opens the door to a lot of landowners who want to plant food plots on their property. Most of the trees you see hung up and leaning will settle and come down on a windy day, and now the landowner has a lot of firewood available that's easy to get to. Here we're coming up on the new 1/8 acre food plot that's toward the end of the corridor with the big white pine tree for a stand, and we left a couple islands of trees in the center for structure. You'll notice we left some distance between the food and the white pines to help the hunter stay undetected. This project will totally transform how this property hunts, and if hunted correctly, will give the landowner a lot more deer sightings and shot opportunities. If you want something like this done on your property, or maybe a habitat plan with a hunting strategy, you'll find my contact info in the description below.